So really a lot of thanks for that. And his presentation is going to delve also on the client side of things, but more on the different frameworks that you can take advantage of in order to facilitate the development of those kind of things, and especially in the mobile environment. So let's give Dan a warm round of applause. Thanks.
Hello. Let me just move this. I'm a little bit shorter than Alex is. Cool. Okay, let's get going. Building native mobile apps with WebRTC. I mean, so this talk is full of pineapples. I added this 5 minutes ago because pineapples and ham equals amazing pizza. I tried to get Lorenzo to have a Hawaiian pizza at ComCon, but I forgot and then didn't organize it. It would have been amazing just to have that picture of him eating a Hawaiian pizza. But there are actually pineapples all the way through. Have a look and see how many you can find. So a little bit about me. I'm Dan Jenkins. I run a company called NimbleApe Limited. I'm the founder of NimbleApe Limited. I'm a Google developer expert in web technologies. That doesn't mean that I'm employed by Google, doesn't mean that they give me money, they don't give me money at all. I really wish they would. It just means that they've kind of rubber stamped me as someone that knows what they're talking about when it comes to web tech, and more specifically WebRTC. I was the very first Google developer expert specializing in WebRTC. They've changed it since then, and therefore I fall underneath web technologies. I'm the organizer of an event called ComCon in the UK. I'm a public speaker. I've spoken at an awful lot of events over the years. I'm Dan_Jenkins on Twitter, and I love Lego, love electric vehicles, and I love sustainable energy. If you want to talk to me about any three of those things, come talk to me afterwards. NimbleApe Limited. I'm talking quite fast because I've got 98 slides to get through and a very short demo in the space of 30 minutes. So NimbleApe Limited, we're a real-time communication consultancy specializing in VoIP and WebRTC. Do an awful lot of WebRTC work, a lot of Asterisk work, a little bit of FreeSwitch work, a little bit of Camelio, and a lot of something new called Dractio. If you're interested in dealing with SIP, but writing Node instead of Camelio or Perl or Python or whatever to integrate into Camelio or OpenSIPs, Dractio is something new and really cool. I can't rave about it enough. And yes, we've sponsored JanusCon and ComCon, and that's the URL. I love the web. I love open source technology. I love open source communities. I'm really passionate about this. And when I see certain things happening within the VoIP industry, within WebRTC, within the foundations that are meant to help us, and they're not helping us, I get really annoyed about it, and hopefully influence change. So building native mobile apps with WebRTC. The title really should have been building native mobile apps using web technologies with WebRTC, because I think that's the only way to actually build a native app nowadays. This is me talking at ComCon a couple months ago with another presentation called Building Fantastical Native Applications with React Native. So as you can tell, I love React Native. But yeah, this talk is about more than React Native. You can go on to YouTube and have a look and have a watch of my talk about React Native, where I go into quite a bit of detail about all the tools that are out there to help you. But you can go onto YouTube, right, and watch all of this. Like, you don't need me to regurgitate the same stuff. So I thought I'd change it up for this one. This one is about building native apps with web technology and WebRTC and taking a look at all of the options. So yeah, let's take a look. So what better way to take a look at the kind of stuff that we need to do, we need to be able to handle by then actually having a quick demo. So let's see whether or not this demo will work. Everyone look away from my desktop full of stuff. Let's drag this. And that half worked. Close that. Try screen sharing again. It's gonna. There we go. It worked. There we go. Okay, so you should hopefully be able to see a soft phone. It looks like a soft phone, right? I mean, I can go into history and I can take a look at all of my old phone calls. I can go into contacts and it shows a load of contacts. It's good because in a previous demo you could see everyone's numbers, which annoys friends. So what's a good demo? A good demo is me finding my mouse. There it is. Going into my soft phone and calling. So I'm going to close this app down and I'm going to lock the phone. And I've probably just broken the fact that that should be working. Is this going to come back? Yes, it did. Amazing. Okay, so you can see here, this is CALLKIT. This is built into iOS, and I'm going to accept my call. And because the phone call was answered using CALLKIT and the app was in the background, it was even killed. No, it wasn't killed. It was in the background at that time. It hasn't shown me the UI or anything because I've answered the phone call. So you can see here, I can put that call onto mute. I can bring up a dial pad and I can put it in DTMF. And this is actually working in the background. You just can't hear it. And then, oh, it's gone because something weird happened. Anyway. Let's just do an outbound call. There we go. There we go. And then I should get an incoming call here, and I'm going to answer that. There we go. So that before you could see the CALLKIT UI, and this is the native UI within the app. And like I can go back to contacts, and I can go into the dialer. I can make another phone call while I'm on this call, and then you can have them both going on, and magically it put my other call onto hold. This is all stuff that we expect from a soft phone, right? Other things that we expect from a soft phone is when I put it up to my ear, the screen turns off, right? Because it's designed to do that so that it stops talking, it stops the sensors working. So there's a ton of stuff that we expect CALLKIT and connection service and everything to do while we're on a call, right? So anything that we build using any technology needs to be able to do those minimum things, right? Otherwise, it doesn't work. It doesn't work within all of our stuff. I called David Duffett last night while we were out going to go get pizza, because you do, you're in Italy, right? And he was on a phone call to someone on Facebook Messenger. And when I called, it overrode Facebook Messenger because Facebook Messenger doesn't have all those ties into CALLKIT and connection service properly. And so my call overrode the call that he was already on. That doesn't seem right, does it? So let's take a look at all of the things that we actually need and then take a look at what options we've got available to us. So what makes a good soft phone? CALLKIT and connection service. CALLKIT is on iOS, connection service is on Android. Push notifications. My phone was closed and it didn't have a WebSocket open. I can categorically tell you it didn't have a WebSocket open to the server because Apple doesn't let you do that. So push notifications, you have to be able to handle push notifications and you have to be able to handle them well. So there are lots and lots of different ways of handling push notifications and different types of push notifications out there. But on iOS, you've got access to something called PushKit. And PushKit gives you access to something called VoIP push notifications. And they take higher priority over the network and they cause extra special stuff to happen when it receives that push. It opens up the app properly, gives that full experience, and in iOS 13 they've they've cut down on who can use PushKit notifications because people were doing naughty things with it. On Android, we use data-only messages from Firebase. WebRTC support. I mean, there might be a bit of like umming here. Surely a soft phone doesn't have to be able to support WebRTC. It could just support SIP, right? It could just support SIP with RTP. These are all the reasons why WebRTC is needed. It's secure by design. It has quick call setup times due to handling NAT by default. It has HD quality audio, which is mandatory. It has good video support, not good, great video support. And Opus is mandatory. So handling packet loss is essentially built in. All of those things are not mandatory with SIP. And that's where WebRTC rises to the top. Phone call expectations. Like I said, when I put this up to my phone, up to my head, the sensors automatically turn off the screen while I'm on a call. So we want to be able to turn off those sensors. We want to be able to turn off the screen. We want to be able to interrupt with existing audio modes during a call. So being able to turn the voice, the audio up and down during a call and have that affect the call volume rather than the volume of the entire device. Why have I got turning the screen off when it's up to your ear twice? That's terrible, Dan. Okay. And then react to hardware button presses. Again, you can't do this within certain platforms. So what tools are out there that we can actually use to build these applications using web tech? So there's something called NativeScript. Not an awful lot of people have heard about it. There's another thing that a lot of people have heard about called Flutter, but a lot of people. How many people in this room have heard about Flutter? Okay, quite a few. Not as many as I was expecting. How many of those people that put their hands up have actually got a real clue about how they could actually build something with Flutter and not just heard about it? No one. Okay, so quite a lot of people have heard about Flutter, but haven't actually got any clue about how they could actually go and build stuff with it. Then there's Vue Native. Vue is a JavaScript framework, and Vue Native allows us to be able to take that and run it natively. And then there's something called progressive web apps. I love progressive web apps. I'm a web developer, I love the web, and therefore you'd think Dan's going to make a progressive web app, right? Well, we'll see. Xamarin, Ionic, Cordova. How many people have heard about Cordova? I was expecting more. Okay, still quite a few people, more people than Flutter. So PhoneGap, yes. How many people have heard about PhoneGap? That's a really good point. Yeah, it used to be called PhoneGap. Well, it's a complicated story. Anyway, and how many people have heard about React Native? Not because Alex talked about it just 5 minutes ago. Quite, even more. Okay. So I mean, if we took all of those, right, we've got 3 minutes on each. If I had 25 minutes left, I don't. I have 15 minutes left. So that's what, a minute and a half, maybe 2 on each. Well, that's just not going to work, is it? Yeah. Okay. I had to put a GIF in somewhere, didn't I? So yeah, let's take a look at the realistic options that we've actually got. The yellow doesn't really work, does it? Anyway, the top one says Flutter, then it's React Native, then it's NativeScript, then it's Vue Native, then it's Progressive Web Apps, then it's Xamarin, then it's Ionic, and then it's Cordova. So let's take a look. So Flutter has WebRTC support and can do phone call norms, as I call them, but it has no way currently, without writing some code, without just reusing what's already out there, has no way of doing CALLKIT or connection service. Does have some SIP libraries available to it, and it does support the special push. So that's kind of good. That's what, 4 out of 5. Then we've got React Native. React Native can do all of it. Then we've got NativeScript. Again, NativeScript does really quite well here. I'd say it's got 4.5 out of 5 because it does have modules out there to be able to do phone calling norms. It does have WebRTC support. The only annoying, actually no, I'm going to retract that. It's not 4.5 out of 5. It's about 4.1 out of 5, and I'll show you later. So that's pretty good as well. Then we've got Vue Native. Vue Native doesn't have true support for all of these things. Again, I'll tell you about that in a sec. So really that kind of is a 5 out of 5, but it's a fake 5 out of 5. And then progressive web apps just kind of fails miserably compared to everything else. Doesn't do the phone calling norms, doesn't have CALLKIT connection service modules at all. And special push should really be kind of a warning symbol there, really, if I thought about it a bit more. So progressive web apps just don't really work at all. And then we've got Xamarin. Xamarin is C# and .NET, and we all know they are not web technologies, and anyone that writes those anywhere near a web service should just leave. Usually I get laughs. Where are all the laughs today? Ionic and Cordova. Ionic and Cordova are just wrappers around a web view, and therefore they are not true native apps. Anything that is just wrapping around a load of actual HTML and CSS and JavaScript cannot be anywhere close to any of those things, any of those frameworks further up. I know React is not a framework. Anyone that is watching this on a video later, let's just carry on because I've got 13 minutes. So progressive web apps. Progressive web apps aren't ready. There is no CALLKIT, there is no connection service, there is no audio routing to the earpiece, which is kind of a really important thing for a soft phone, right? I don't walk around on the phone like this because I'm not 16. Anyway, sorry to any adult 16-year-olds. Maybe I should have said 9. Anyway, so there's no audio routing to the earpiece in mobile web, which is crazy. I need to make during this I was like, oh, surely I could do this. No, so I need to go make myself a WebRTC issue and pass it on to someone that can actually, fix it. And there's no control over the screen staying on or staying off. You can see I'm on. I haven't touched my phone, but my phone is still on because that's what you expect from a soft phone. But there's a talk after me where they're going to talk about stuff, and I hope I haven't ruined it for them by laying out all those things. I'm a web developer, so I cry a little bit every single time that a client asks me for a native app, and I can't make a progressive web app. If anyone doesn't know what a progressive web app, I should have probably stepped back a little bit there. A progressive web app is just a website, but it has loads of extra capabilities, which means that you don't install an app that is 25 meg. It just goes and gets the assets as and when it needs it, and it can install it to your device, and it can go into the Play Store, but it's all just web stuff. So yeah, progressive web apps are getting more and more native stuff. Soon they'll be able to grab your contacts, for example, from your native device, which is great. But until it can start doing CALLKIT, connection service, all of the extra stuff with sensors, then it's just not going to work for this use case. Then we've got Vue Native. Vue Native compiles down to React Native, and that's why I was saying it has all those warning symbols, because it's kind of half there, half not. Let's go back. There we go. So it does have WebRTC support because Vue Native can use React Native WebRTC. And it can do all the phone call norms because it can use React Native in-call manager. So are all those ticks? I don't think so, because you're inevitably going to get into some sort of issue. But they all, yeah, so we're able to use all of those React Native modules, and so everything should just work. From my point of view, there's no point talking about both, and I prefer React. So this is an opinionated talk, and we're talking about React, not Vue. Okay? So really, that just leaves us Flutter, native script, and React Native. Flutter. So for all those people in the room that don't know what Flutter is, it's made by Google. It compiles to native completely and utterly. It runs on iOS, Android, desktop, and embedded devices. It's kind of theoretically this magical thing that just works everywhere. You can write using Dart, so it's very familiar for JavaScript devs, and it's based on something called widgets. So you include widgets and you write widgets, and then you kind of move everything around. So theoretically, you write once and you run everywhere. Native script. You can build using Vue or Angular. So JavaScript devs love this, right? It's all built using TypeScript, so theoretically better than JavaScript because you can, type everything. There's no bridge between native script and the native APIs like there is in React Native. They do some weird stuff where they kind of move all of the native APIs into browser land, into JavaScript land, which feels very, very wrong to me, but somehow it all works. So, and then it uses a JavaScript virtual machine to run all of your native code, and then that virtual machine can actually be different based on whether or not you're running iOS or whether or not you're running Android, which is great because on Android you can run a JavaScript virtual machine, a V8, which is really, really, really good. And then on iOS you use something called JavaScript Core. So you get the best of what both worlds can give you, right? So that doesn't sound too bad, does it? There are an awful lot of pluses there. Then we've got React Native. React Native is made by Facebook. So is that a pro? Is that a con? It's built using React, obviously, reusable components, and then there is a bridge between JavaScript land and native land, and it uses JavaScript Core virtual machine on both. So I see that as kind of a plus because then things actually run to a degree the same on both platforms, and you can kind of be sure about that. But is it using the best of what's available on Android? No. And it runs on iOS, Android, and Windows. There is an unofficial way of running it on Mac as well. I've never tried it. Pros and cons of both. I've got 7 minutes. Okay. Flutter. Getting started with Flutter is like the bomb. It's so easy to get started with Flutter. Before 2 weeks ago, I knew an awful lot about Flutter, but I'd never actually gone and written Flutter code. I downloaded the SDK, downloaded all the right things, put them in the right places, and ran a command, one command, and it magically worked. That didn't happen with React Native, and it didn't happen with NativeScript. So getting started is really, really, really easy. But the promise of iOS with Android, with web, with desktop, just isn't true. If you are completely writing everything yourself, it is 100% true. You can go and write code tomorrow using Flutter and it will work across all of those platforms. But that's not how we write apps today, is it? We utilize code written by other, more clever people. I use React Native WebRTC. There are many smart people in this room that have contributed to that project in small/heavy ways, and I couldn't do that. So why would I go and write a ton of code that I'm not really clever enough to write? So we don't do that. So that's not really 100% true, because those modules that are already out there have to support desktop, have to support the web. I mean, hopefully when everyone's caught up, because desktop and web was only announced at I/O last year, Google I/O last year, then theoretically that's a really good thing, and we can stop writing these damn Electron apps that take up like 30 bajillion gigabytes of memory for running 5 different apps that all have the same core. So that could be really, really cool, and could mean writing once and instantly running across all platforms. So that's great. But the ecosystem is too sparse right now. Like I said, there's no CALLKIT plugin. There's no connection service plugin. You have to go and build it. And to me, it's just not very webby. This is a widget for a soft phone using Dart in Flutter. To me, that's not web. That's, I mean, I get it. It's Java. It is very JavaScripty. It is Dart, but you kind of, it's just not. Anyway, so, and it lacks that CALLKIT connection. Anyway, so native script. Getting started quickly is fairly frictionless. It's not as frictionless as Flutter. It's TypeScript. Is that a plus? Is it a cross? To me, it's a cross. I love JavaScript. But many people would say it's a plus. Again, the ecosystem is fairly sparse. It's much better than Flutter, but it's still not really there. But you can go and build using Angular or Vue. So you don't have to decide whether or not you're doing stuff with React and React only, and that's the only thing. You can go and build something with Angular or Vue. What modules are out there are incomplete though, and this is where that 4.1 came in earlier. The connections, the CALLKIT module in NativeScript allows you to display that screen and to accept a call. It doesn't have any of the other abilities within CALLKIT, so I wouldn't have been able to press those DTMF buttons and for all of that to work, which means I've got to go in and add that functionality. Again, that's not terrible, but I've still got to go and do that stuff. Community-driven marketplace. Again, is this a good or bad thing? It's a bad thing because people label things wrong. That call module at the bottom says it can do everything. It can't. Then there's React Native. Wow, I've got 3 minutes. I hope you're all listening. Okay, React Native. Getting started can be the biggest royal pain in the rear ever. And when you hit a problem, it can ground you for a day or more, especially if you don't have these lovely friends that you've got all over the world that you can kind of message and go, I'm really stuck and it's been driving me crazy for 6 hours. Can you help me? And then they sit down with you and go, oh, it's that. Anyway, so that's a pain of being a consultant without a team around you. But it's extremely webby. Take a look at that. That's HTML, isn't it? Basically, there's a view there. There's a component. It's essentially web components, right? This is really cool. You pass in extra stuff. You say, oh, you pass stuff into components, and then those components are self-contained within. Oh, this is the web, even though it's not the web, but it is the web. So there's huge ecosystems of modules that are available, and that's because React Native's been around the longest, right? And there are more and more modules, more and more apps being built using React Native than any of the others probably put together. That's not a direct quote. Don't quote me on that. I'm half exaggerating, but I don't think I am. So because of all of those modules that are already around, there are more and more devs building with React Native, which means it's easier to go and build your next app because someone has already hit the problem that you've already hit, that you've just hit, and they've already solved it for you, right? Well, yeah, that's true. So, I mean, what's the best? I've got 30 seconds. I started a little bit late, didn't I? So, a minute. Okay, just maybe 2. So what's best? Well, that's really for you to decide. Flutter looks cool, but the ecosystem really isn't there. And will Flutter be around tomorrow? Google has this habit of just going, don't really like this stuff anymore, and it's a bit in the way of our business plan, so yeah, we're not going to support that anymore, and we're going to just take away everything in a year's time. Well, thanks, Google. NativeScript seems really, really decent, but everyone forgets about it. Like, how many people have actually heard about NativeScript before? I've spoken to quite a few of my friends that do native app development over the past 2 weeks because of this talk, and they've gone, what's NativeScript? So does that mean it gets less attention and less third-party modules, and so you actually have to build more and more yourself? Absolutely. React Native has huge support, but can be incredibly frustrating. But when it works, it's beautiful. It just works. And you can build something so quickly and get something out the door so quickly that you kind of forget about all that kind of hours worth of pain or whatever that you hit at the very beginning. I mean, so do you want my opinion? I'm very opinionated. React Native wins hands down. And that's because of all of these modules that are already available to us today. So there's React Native WebRTC, there's React Native CALLKIT, and there's React Native in-call manager, and they're all bundled under a GitHub organization called React Native WebRTC now, which is great. We've got all of these modules together, which is great. There's a module called React Native Notifications from Wix, and that supports PushKit really, really, really well. React Native Paper, I'm no graphic designer, but I can go and put loads of material design components together and make something that looks really damn good. And then, of course, JSZip. I've currently got a temporary fork, and I was going to show you all of the code that's in the fork, but I'm running out of time. I'm over time. But a year ago, there was quite a lot in that fork because of the version of React Native WebRTC that we were running. But now that we're running 75, yes. Now that we're running WebRTC version 75, that fork has pretty much nothing in it, which is really cool. Hopefully, in the next month or so, we're going to be able to just get rid of it. And yeah, very, very quickly, it's not just your iOS/Android/whatever code that can be done in WebTech. Your SIP routing can also be done in WebTech as well. So build your next native app with WebTech. It's much, much faster, in my opinion. Web developers are cheaper than native developers, in my opinion. Or, just hire Nimble8 and we can help you do it as well. Thank you very much. I guess I have time for one question because I've already gone over time. Thank you very much.
Even less than one question because of that Zoom.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. Does anybody have a question for Dan? We have Anand there.
I was about to say, no questions equals I was amazing, right?
Have you heard about Qt? Have you looked into that? Or
Sorry, say that again?
this Qt approach, Qt?
I have not.
Okay.
Sorry, but I can't answer what I don't know. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan.